Making a podcast is a bit of a strange endeavor. It's definitely not like writing a book. It's not really like a sermon. It's not really like teaching. It's its own kind of, unique offering, I suppose. And it affords a window into my own passions and questions and doubts and influences and experience and ideas. The images, probably most importantly, the images that are presently captivating me, or the images that have been kind of constellating in my life. And that's kind of how it feels, like something constellates, or a series of things constellate, and then I have this feeling or this urge like, oh, okay, now it's time to make a podcast. And I'd say 3 or 4 things have come together in this kind of, constellating effect of what's drawing me in. And it has to do with blessing. That word, blessing, or blessings, has to do with pilgrimage, which I've been on lately. And the idea that a saint is a kind of misfit. Maybe there's a subcategory in there which I want to also speak to, which is the sort of source or wellspring of art, of an artistic way of relating to the world, that wellspring. So these are the things that are kind of in the field, and my own field. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I want to go today. I want to just make a quick aside here at the beginning, because last time I made a podcast, I put out there the opportunity to do some free spiritual direction sessions. I'm, in addition to being a guide at Animus and a pastor at a congregational church here in town, Mayflower, I'm also in a spiritual direction program. And like I said before, I'm really curious about the relationship between the kind of guide training I do have and dream work and a sort of perspective that has formed me and shaped me, and the world of spiritual direction. Like, what's going on between these two domains? How much do they overlap? How much are they their own kind of separate worlds? These are questions that I'm carrying into the second year of this program, and and so yeah, I put out there that I have some free sessions available. And what I didn't guess would happen is something like 30-ish people contacted me saying, oh, I'd be interested in that. And every part of me wanted to say yes. And I think it's because one-on-one conversations have been a core part of what I've been offering in the world for the last few years, but also been one of my greatest teachers. It's such an honor and a privilege to meet with people and to talk with them over time, to come alongside in some way, to mirror, to reflect, to really have a kind of radical conversation that's not directive as much as a kind of co-participated sort of unfolding. And anyway, it's just been a great gift in my life, and I plan to do it forever. It's the kind of thing you can do until you die, of course. And but I don't have that kind of capacity. It's like, oh, I wish my schedule was that open, but it's not right now. It's one of the limits. It's a limiter that I'm bumping into, and I've emailed most people back. I still have a few more I need to email back, and but I just want to say, yeah, thanks for reaching out. And this complements a feeling I have, and maybe it's not just a feeling. There's also like some empirical data to support it, that a lot of us, including me, are hungry for spiritual guidance in any way, shape, or form. And maybe another way of saying it, a lot of what comes at us isn't isn't all that helpful. And so I just want to encourage you. Yeah, if it doesn't work this time, maybe it will down the road, and maybe more than that. I hope you will reach out to a mentor, a spiritual director, to say yes to the really kind of vulnerable and awesome possibility of speaking about your life in the presence of someone else who can really listen. One of the things I got from James Finley, he's really talking about the therapeutic relationship, but he means it in the deepest sense of that word, not so much in just related to the consulting room, so to speak. He said a good listener will neither invade nor abandon. And it's kind of like that. Yeah, we need those kind of people. And thankfully, I've had that kind of support in my own life, so I know how much it matters. And so thanks for reaching out. And the few of you that I was able to say yes to, I'm looking forward to our conversation as it unfolds. And so it's kind of, I just wanted to circle back to that. And I want to begin with this word blessing. It's been a kind of a hard weekend. I was helping facilitate a funeral for someone, for a young person. And I'm going to kind of mask the details just to respect the family and the community, but a young person who died too young. It's like Mary Oliver's line, doesn't everything die at last and too soon? And yes, that God, how true is that? And sometimes we're in the presence, we're at the threshold of death, where the too soon component of it is just rising up and staring us in the face, and it's such a tremendous grief to bear. And so we gathered as friends and family, and we gathered as an act of ceremony and ritual to mark the passage of this young person into the second mystery. Jung says life is a luminous pause between two great mysteries, birth and death, and it felt that way. Wow, we are here at the gates of the second mystery, and we were gathering to remember and to cry and to sing songs and to pray, to listen to old texts, and also to bless. Blessing is an ancient posture that we've forgotten almost everything about. The Irish love blessings. May the road rise to meet you, and there's a blessing for everything. And same in Judaism, there's a blessing for eating and for using the bathroom. It's like the complexity of life and all of its dynamics is faced or turned toward with a heart and a posture of blessing. And a blessing is such an interesting mode of expression. It's not quite poem, but it's kind of like a poem. It's not quite prayer. It's kind of like a prayer. It's maybe an embodiment of the word amen in Hebrew, which means may it be so. It's that kind of longing. There's a longing in there. May this be the case. And as we were gathering around the altar and around the ashes, we turned to blessing, a particular blessing, and this whole notion has been working on me. I have a new collection of blessings. Well, I don't know how new it is. It's new to me. From John O'Donohue, called "To Bless the Space Between Us," and it's like 100 blessings that John O'Donohue wrote, or kind of reworked some Celtic notions of blessing in a contemporary and fresh way, and so I want to read a blessing that's entitled "For Light." And of course, we're entering the darker time of year, and in the Christian calendar already next week is the beginning of Advent, the season of darkness where there is a longing and a waiting for light. And really, in the more traditional Christian calendar, there's even a resistance to singing Christmas songs, to wait, and to instead sing songs of longing and lament and anticipation, to not rush things. It's like there's something so assaulting about the radio. Not that I really listen to the radio that often, or the music you hear in stores is like assaulting us. It's like too soon, too soon. So I'm saying that because I'm not trying to rush the entombment here, or the gestation. That's the better metaphor. The darkness of the womb. But you can hear in John O'Donohue's blessing here, called for light, you can hear the kind of conversation that happens between darkness and light. And that's where I want to begin today with this blessing. Light cannot see inside things. That is what the dark is for. Minding the interior, nurturing the draw of growth through the places where death, in its own way, turns into life. So already we're in a different playing field. It's not the assaulting optimism of positivity. Think light. He says light can't even see inside things. That's what the dark is for. We need gestation. We need the encapsulation of darkness to mind the interior of things, which down there in the secret recesses of this time of year and of this blessing, there is a turning into life, but in its own time. Light cannot see inside things. That is what the dark is for, minding the interior, nurturing the draw of growth through places where death, in its own way, turns into life. In the glare of neon times, let our eyes not be worn by surfaces that shine, with hunger made attractive. It's like hunger for the wrong kinds of things in our glaring neon times, the times of the screen and the phone. He goes on, that our thoughts may be true light, finding their way into words. What a hope that our thoughts even may be true light, not co-opted. This is me speaking, not co-opted by the god of the economy, the monotheistic god of money, or something like that. That our own thoughts may be true to light, finding their way into words, which have the weight of shadow to hold the layers of truth. That's the kind of truth I long for. Yes, there's light, but carrying also the weight of shadow. That's how we can feel its depth. That we never place our trust in minds claimed by empty light, where one-sided certainties are driven by false desire. When we look into the heart, may our eyes have the kindness and reverence of candlelight. Which is to raise a question, of course, what are we looking at? Who are we listening to? Who are we placing our trust in? What kind of glaring neon certainty is capturing our attention? He's trying to pull us down by also longing for the light. When we look into the heart, may our eyes have the kindness and reverence of candlelight. That the searching of our minds be equal to the oblique crevices and corners where the mystery continues to dwell, glimmering in fugitive light. He's kind of admitting here a trust, a faith in a radical mystery, that it's real, that it's that it dwells in certain places. When we are confined inside the dark house of suffering, that moonlight might find a window. It's what I think about when I think about this family in their own dark house of suffering, where a child is no longer present in their physical form. When we are confined inside the dark house of suffering, that moonlight might find a window. It's a different mode of light, a softer mode of light. When we become false and lost, that the severe noon light would cast our shadow clear. It's interesting, he equates being false and lost with that severe noon light, that glaring, I know, certainties. Maybe it will cast a shadow and things will become clear. When we love, that dawn light would lighten our feet upon its waters. Sometimes love can feel oppressive and unconsummated and unmet and complicated, And I love that he just calls us back to the possibility that when we love, it's like the dawn light, and that it would lighten our feet upon those waters, those mercurial waters I'm adding. As we grow old, that twilight would illuminate treasure in the fields of memory. God, those of us who are older, to the olders, let that twilight illuminate treasures in the field of your own memory. And when we come to search for God, which he capitalizes here, when we come to search for God, let us first be robed in night. That's what Advent is for. Let's wrap ourselves in the night here. Let's take on the cloak and the mantle of night. When we come to search for God, let us first be robed in night. Put on the mind of morning to feel the rush of light spread slowly inside the colors of stillness of a found world. What a blessing. What a strange blessing. It doesn't expel the darkness, but treats it like a mysterious womb. Even in our search for the ultimate, for God, for the divine, for the mystery, we need the night, we need that darkness, so as to be sensitive and aware when the morning begins to creep in its stillness of a found world, as if we're waking up to the first day of creation, because it is the first day of creation. In some strange and mysterious way, it is the first day. So there's a little blessing for you, for me, to sit by the river of blessings and to orient our cynical and jaded hearts toward possibility. I think that's what a blessing kind of evokes. It reminds me of my last podcast when I was talking about Ignatius, just very briefly at the end, because I'm so captivated by this idea of his that if he calls it being a true Christian or something like that, is one who makes every effort to listen on the deep level and to treat the possibility that what someone else is saying and doing is there's something redemptive in it, if we can only learn to listen on that level, instead of treating everything like a category, a label, an ideology, a philosophy, a class, a race, whatever, just on and on and on. Labels and labels and labels. But to treat the other as a mystery. And I think John O'Donohue is encouraging us to treat the world as that kind of mystery. And we need a few blessings. We need some encouragement. in a world that wants to drive it out of town. Which leads me to my second kind of star in the constellation here that's just been sort of on my mind and my heart the last month. And that is a pilgrimage. Now, I was taken by pilgrimage maybe 20 years ago. Really, when I started leading and guiding tours in Israel and in the West Bank, and it occurred to me pretty early on what I didn't want this to be, which is how it started, which is like either some sort of condensed graduate course, or a fire hose of cultural background data and language and archaeology. And I told this is so arrogant on my part, but I told a seminary student that if he would come with me on a tour, that he'd learn more in a week than he'd learn in his entire seminary training, which is, of course, a load of bullshit. But I had a lot of passion, and I was, sort of taken by the fervor of information, you could say. And it's kind of like being possessed. And pretty early on, a few things kneecapped me, a few conversations, a few questions I couldn't answer. And it started to slowly dawn on me that maybe this was more like a pilgrimage. Maybe it's something that we are on, that I am on, that we are on, where what unfolds in the living conversation between land, text, antiquity, the present, our wounds, our hopes, our faith traditions, what doesn't make sense, our questions, our doubts, even our certainties, in that cauldron, I guess, that's the point, that we kind of stew as we wander and walk, and it kind of unfolds. And so pilgrimage is not something new to me, but the problem, is when you start offering them, it's like, I don't know how to say it. Hold on, I'm going to cough. When you start offering them, it's like, it's hard to be both a participant and a guide. The one part of me has this guiding hat on, like, oh yeah, what time is lunch? And, so-and-so's not happy with their room or whatever. And it's like this at Animus too, where though the environment is much more conducive to surrendering to the wild world and to the underworld and to dreams, and because these programs are set in such wild places, you still got the guide hat on. Do we have enough water, and do we have enough fuel, and so-and-so is a vegan, so-and-so has this dietary restriction, so-and-so, it's part of it. So it's harder to surrender. But my wife and I just got back from Spain, which turned out to be a kind of spontaneous pilgrimage for us. And, for us individually too. I mean, we were together, but there was something like that I had forgotten about the art of wandering like this that I needed to remember. And when you're really on a pilgrimage, so much of the world you can feel is mirroring something back. And there's this whole conversation between the external journey and the inner journey. That's kind of the subtext of what a pilgrimage is. It's like the kind of lost, found, wandering dynamic you surrender to as you let a place and a discovering a place find you as much as you are seeking. And of course, it's like you seek something, and that's not exactly what unfolds. It's like a series of surprises, and it's such a gift to wander like this. And maybe in the classic sense, to use some Joseph Campbell, the pilgrimage is a sacred practice where we journey more intentionally toward the unknown, which is the thing that we all resist. And that's the beginning of the hero's journey. It's the call to the unknown. When I forget how he puts it, he says when it really begins to happen when the mystery, and he doesn't use that word, but I'll use it here, shifts us to the zone unknown. That's the phrase he uses, the zone unknown, and when we're likely to resist it. And a pilgrimage is a way of walking closer toward that border. So, so we went to Spain, and I hadn't been to Spain since I was like in high school for a quote missions trip with my dad's church, and I got all kinds of funny stories about that, including being kicked off the team, and it was just like I don't know, the opposite of a missions trip. I put it in quotes because obviously it's just funny that a group of Protestant evangelicals are going to tell a bunch of Catholics about Jesus as if they haven't heard of him. But even the idea of serving, was, for me, I was just a little too self-centered and wild. And so I don't know. It's like, I'm saying this now. It's just occurring to me right in this moment that I don't know, maybe there was something about returning as a different person with a different heart. Like, what did I walk by in my arrogance? I guess that's part of youth, but what did I walk by in my arrogance? What possibilities did I walk right by? And now, what's funny about our pilgrimage to Spain is that it started with Radiohead tickets. We're both like huge, lifelong Radiohead fans. Fan isn't even the right word. And so I got in this like super difficult and tedious queue for the possibility of even being put into a pool of possibilities where you might possibly get a Radiohead ticket, where they were intending to be geographically fair and try to give tickets to people close to Spain, and then kind of out from there and trying to avoid bots buying up these tickets. And anyway, getting on the website, and I can't read the Spanish. Should have paid attention in high school, and I'm using like Google Translate, and the clock is ticking down. But kind of like in an extremely unexpected way, I came out with 2 Radiohead tickets in Madrid, and the pilgrimage was set. The holy place was arose in our hearts and minds and called us. And of course, it's not just that, because in our own ways, and even more so with my wife, we've been, Spain has been a kind of alluring star on the horizon, because she teaches St. Teresa and St. John of the Cross in the Foundations course at Dominican Center. So she's been taken by these mystics for the last 10 years or so, and I too have a fascination, particularly those two figures. So it turned into this pilgrimage to these sites of Saint Teresa and Saint John, and to another kind of pilgrimage to Barcelona to see a friend and to eat. So. And some of the most ridiculous, food probably that I've ever had. Ridiculously awesome, and to see some things in Barcelona, and then back to Madrid, where we saw Radiohead, and got to go to some of the most magnificent art museums on the planet. We both love Renaissance art, and also the contemporary works of Picasso and Dali, and the whole list of artists that where this part of the world was so important. So yeah, what a gift and what a surprise! Like, just totally awesome. And I was taken by a couple things. We got to see the monastery where Saint Teresa spent, I don't know, something like 30 years, and just wandering in there on a rainy day, mostly empty, a couple things stood out to me. In the opening room, there were 2 chairs, kind of sitting, not directly facing each other, but kind of, slightly facing outward, almost like, imagine like 2 rocking chairs that are kind of facing each other, but mostly they're looking out. And they were there were a couple of different examples of this in this particular monastery, and they're kind of behind this little, rope that you're not supposed to go on. And I don't know. You never know what's going to capture you. But that's what captured me, these two chairs. And first of all, it struck me back to what I was saying about companioning, about that kind of community, about the kind of help we all need. It's like sitting next to someone and partially looking at them and partially letting yourself be seen, but also looking out to the horizon. That's what I think a companion is. That's what a mentor is, to go back to the Odyssey, where Mentor meets Telemachus down on the beach and goes with him for a while. It's not direct advice, and it's not directly peering into, tell me all your deepest, darkest secrets. And I thought, already in the 16th century, the saints and mystics were modeling this kind of companionship, because that's apparently what these chairs were for, what we would call spiritual direction, sitting alongside someone. So that really struck me. And then slowly, just wandering around the monastery, I had this growing, sort of revelatory seeing that, wait a minute, these people are artists. And it wasn't like an idea that I was trying to work out. I just looked around. What were they doing? I guess my ideas of a monastery were like, you barely get enough calories and you work all day, digging potatoes, and the rest of the time you're praying, and every once in a while your superior yells at you for something, and it's mostly a drag. And these Spanish monasteries were absolutely buzzing with a wellspring of creativity. The muse was at work. The spirit was at work, which kind of leads me into my third constellation here, my third star in the constellation. So blessing and pilgrimage, and this saint as I think I said misfit, but I mean a kind of creative. And I don't even like that word. I don't like when people call themselves creative. No offense if you do, or creatives, or I don't know. There's just something that I find slightly annoying about that. I almost feel like if you have to say it, it's like it doesn't seem to be all that true. Or workshops about creativity, and I don't know. I just look. I have hangups. I'm probably wrong, but they just annoy me, and I just never really saw the monastery like this. And then it's like the blinders just came off. Whoa. These people, especially women like St. Teresa, first of all, didn't have many options. And even St. Teresa was amazing, because she was sort of warned, be careful when you write about this stuff, because you're a woman, and there's a kind of second-class citizenship. There's also a kind of mysterious honoring of the feminine, kind of in the underbelly of Christian mysticism, which now is much more on the surface. If you go to Avila, where St. Teresa spent a lot of time, it's like everywhere you look, the feminine mode of being, feminine statues to St. Teresa, even paintings where St. Teresa is kind of hovering. This is in the main chapel in Avila, where she's kind of hovering above the monks. Okay, they got it. In a pretty profound way. I don't even like that phrase, got it, but they were subverted by their own patriarchy, so to speak. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. She would sometimes write in third person, I know someone who. I mean, that's so clever. She's talking about herself and her own experience of God and her own mysterious encounter. I know someone who once. It's classic. That's just so good. And they didn't have many options, and yet, their own sense of calling and meaning and purpose and love and passion and creativity found its way of expressing in the four walls of the monastery. And these people did not have it easy, Teresa or St. John. They had to deal with really serious parental rejection, institutional rejection, and imprisonment, and in John's case, torture, punishment, Yet they stayed true to their own dreams and visions. They also didn't bow down to them. They went through years of very serious discernment. What is happening to me? Discernment around dreams and visions and experiences is like, again, we hardly want to touch that, It might take us down a notch or two, but anyway. And what I couldn't believe is that this explosion of mysticism, of experience, happened in one of the most politically wrought and dangerous times in European history. This is the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. There are wars. There's intense trading of ideas, but also hostility between the Moorish culture, the Islamic culture, which had dominated Spain for hundreds of years, Jewish culture, which was flourishing and then repressed under Isabel and Ferdinand. The 1492, the year they kicked all the Jews out of Spain. And of course Christianity and its many factions and its many schools of thought and its many monasteries. And I mean, it was like a time where canonical law and authority and war, it was really challenging, not to mention illness, and people were sick. It was, and it's out of that context, out of that milieu, that a kind of multidisciplinary conversation just blossomed between the human body and new ideas and music and art and science and mystical experience. And Teresa and John were right at the heart of that. And inside these monasteries, you can still see the remnants of this explosion of creativity. These beams were carefully painted. There were musical instruments that were used in the afternoons, basically jam session and like decorating your dorm room, way better than that, obviously, not like tie-dye and, Christmas lights. But embroidery and drawing and painting, just ways of praying, really, that are artistic. And I was definitely taken by, there's a little small drawing that St. John of the Cross made. It came from a dream. And it's kind of, it's a vision of the cross, but slightly from above, like, and at a strange angle, like an angle that's a little bit hard to describe, which he then drew, which then later inspired Salvador Dali in one of his most famous paintings of the Christ image of the cross above the lake, which is now in Scotland. But again, this conversation across disciplines. The divine life was a love affair, sort of despite the odds and despite the politically stagnant, repressive, angry, and dangerous cultural climate. It just blossomed. It's like the Dark Ages, hardly, And I guess what I'm finding so kind of inspiring personally is that I think we actually live in a new kind of dark age. And instead of, I don't know, the criticism and I don't know it's like cynicism, or fight, it's like, what can you do? Or we're going to fight the system. And I don't know, neither of those are all that appealing to me. It's like, what I'm saying is that the mystical tradition bloomed and blossomed in the midst of the Dark Ages. And may that be the case again. Back to the opening blessing of the dawning of a light. That's the hope. And I really mean that. I've been volunteering, doing some stuff with some young people in different contexts. And illiteracy is growing, and like, it's kind of shocking. You know, I mean, kids can't even read, really. That's like, I just thought of Zoolander. This is the school for kids who can't read good. You know, it's like that. And also there's a illiteracy about our foundational stories and images and texts and ideas. They're almost completely unknown. I saw this statistic recently where there's a range because it's self-reported, but something between 60 and 95% of students self-report that cheating is normal on every assignment. So what is this? Like, whoa. And of course, things I pick on all the time, the algorithm is like this self-referential feedback loop. What I already like or think I like or pause on for 3 seconds or say in a conversation to a friend, just shows up, feeds it back, feeds it back, feeds it back, feeds it back. Said to my wife the other day, my Garmin, which like I use for all my whatever sports stuff, training, died. I mean, it lasted for like 9 years. It was faithful. And I was like, I don't know if I should get a Garmin or maybe I should try this new Whoop thing. And of course, boom, Instagram, these 2 ads just coming at me. The self-referential feedback loop. But it's a lot darker than advertising. It's even our ideas. Even if they're completely delusional, they come back and they reinforce. I had my first dream about this, which kind of alarmed me. It's like there was something going on in this dream scene, and I was kind of dismayed at what was going on, and I wanted to stop it. In the dream, I didn't have a phone, but with my thumb, I swiped up, almost like on the landscape or the scene that was unfolding. I went and nothing happened. It's like, oh my God. It's now infecting my dreams, it is a kind of new dark age, and all the kind of crazy crap with the polarization of the left and the right, and from the left's point of view, all things Western are evil and there's nothing worth valuing, and on the right, the past is a kind of fantasy world, a kind of glory land that never existed, of course, but must be preserved. It's like these two, they're both idiotic, There's no nuance at all. And thus the fight continues. And, in the midst of this, where is the wellspring of creativity? Where is it located? What else might possibly want to make itself known? I was listening to, maybe I shouldn't go on and on about the Dark Age here. I'm not to depress you. You already know, but I was listening to maybe Esther Perel or something in this. She was interviewing, as she does, couples, anonymous couples and relationships. And this couple was talking in such a funny way about their relationship. And I was really hoping Esther Perel would comment on it, which she did. I don't want to steal her podcast, but, something like, my ADHD triggers her OCD, and my nervous system can't handle her fourness, and her fourness activates my oneness. This is Enneagram language, and just a string of labels. And it went on and on and on and on and on. It was like the only lens through which the world was being read and interpreted. I mean, I was like, holy crap. I knew everyone knows that psychologically oriented language has made its way into pop culture, but it's actually coloring the way we see everything. And I'm not sure how good this is. It's like, where's the human? Where's the image in any of that? Even if you think archetypally, where's the archetypal lure of that? My ADHD triggers her OCD and we need some help with this. It's like, that's not a love affair. I'm not criticizing this couple, but that's, I don't know what that is. That's relating to someone as an identity, not as a mystery. So, yeah. Okay, now I want to say something hopeful, that if we can learn to listen, if we can learn to go down to the river instead of talk about the river, if we can learn to treat the other human being as a mystery, if we can return to and be in relationship with some of the most profound insights that have come our way. I was thinking of St. Teresa's radical image of the interior castle, which Jung quotes from several times in his work. That somewhere in the center, there's a journey to the center where the God image dwells. There's an interior castle, and the soul is a beautiful thing, and it works kind of like a silkworm which goes into a cocoon and comes out a butterfly. That's St. Teresa. Like, what a profound view of the beauty of the human soul. Like, where's that? And probably it's that kind of image that arose because of the darkness of her own age. Or St. John's ladder to God that arose in his prison cell. You know, this is the dark night that he says is a ladder to God. Like you can only discover that when you're in the dark night, first of all. But that's like an image and a metaphor for his like the stance that he took in his own culture. Not that he was trying that, but that's what we remember, you know. Out of the darkness comes these beautiful possibilities. That's the wellspring at work. The muses. What new thing might possibly be born, which was one of my themes in the last podcast around the shadow. Like Jung says, the shadow is creative. So, okay, what do I want to do now? I want to find my book of blessings. I've already made a podcast that's a few minutes longer than I wanted it to be. I want to end with another blessing. So you opened it with a blessing for the light. Now I want to read a blessing for new beginnings. And this is not it. This is me speaking. May this Advent season, may this darkness envelop you. May you learn to see in the dark. May your own gestation be true and wild and beautiful. May the darkness of our own age, our bickering and our finger pointing, our sins, our blindness, the way we destroy other human beings and the earth, the way we label and fixate on what's best for me, you know, the ego, the small self, you know, despite all that, may the light of the mysterious, the luminous light that appears only in the darkest of the darkness of the womb, of the prison cell for St. John, of the monastery that St. Teresa was sent to. Let's send her away, you know. May this season, this Advent year, your own gestation will continue. To not be too lured by the neon images and to trust that something's at work here, because what we need is a new beginning. And I don't think it's a matter of a strategic plan. I don't think it's a matter of hiring a life coach and, you know, working on the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, fine, you want to do that. That's not really what I mean. I mean a new beginning for our own dark age, and that maybe there's a personal dimension, a role that you play, that I play, that wants to be born, that comes from the mysteries, that comes from the river, that comes from the deep places, that comes from the shape of our own souls. So for a new beginning, here's the blessing. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, I already love it. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts Never think to wander. This beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. It's almost like despite our plans and our, what we're going to manifest, no, in out of the way places where we never even cared to wander with our thoughts, something has been quietly forming. He goes on, for a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, like you tried so hard. You willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. You know the feeling? I know I need to move on, but I can't do it. I can't will myself. I can't quite leave. It watched you play, he continues, it watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard in the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? That feeling of stuckness and sameness growing around you. It watched you play in this seduction of safety. Wondered, would you always live like this? You know the feeling. Oh, will it always be this way? He goes on, then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground. Your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire, your own life's deepest desire. What wants to unfold? What wants to be born? What is already being born? That's what he's talking about. You can trust that this promise is opening. Awaken your spirit to adventure, holding nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. May it be so, my friends.